So hi, I'm Toby. I'm Chief Customer Officer at Filtered, and it's great to be talking to you today, Tom.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for your time, Toby. First question I'm asking everyone today. Learning tech is always a real moment in the year. So what are the conversations that you're having the most this year, or are you hearing the most?
Well, Filtered is, for a while, we've pioneered the use of artificial intelligence in learning all the way from the first patented adaptive course syllabus through to a recommendation engine. And now we focus on content intelligence, which is using AI to understand the learning content an organization has and allow those organizations to optimize that content, to curate it well, to make it findable. Obviously, this year, we've been absolutely swamped by people. I think our stand's in a good location, but a bigger factor is that AI, generative AI, is the mega trend, and it's going way beyond L&D. I mean, put it this way, even on my train down here yesterday, all the conversations around me were about generative AI. You and I, we're not talking about something that's niche to our industry anymore, like gamification or something like that. We're now talking about something that's very, very broad. And so we've seen a lot of people coming over just asking, they want to see, they're almost getting beyond the point of playing around with it. They want to see how AI can actually be used to add some value in the process. Where we focus is not where you would expect. You know, a lot of companies are using AI to make content more quickly, for example, which is obviously a good use case. Filtered is more using it to streamline and optimize processes. We had a bit of discussion about what we would lead with as an offer, a pitch, a play for this event. But we decided to share what we can do with AI-generated skill frameworks. So with a good briefing, you can basically plug in just some basic questions to some source data into generative AI. We use, GPT-4. And it will output for you a skill framework, which is about 80 to 90% similar to the output a company would get if they focused on this effort for about 3 to 6 months. So that's just massive. So we've been literally giving that away to people because we're like, it helps everyone. It lifts all boats to have a better optimized skill framework. And we've been seeing a lot of interest in that.
Brilliant. There's a lot in there already. AI is not new as such. It's been around for a very long time, but it feels like we've really entered a new kind of era of it. So over the last year, what are the big changes that you've seen specifically in the L&D space, I guess?
Yeah, so I think the changes we've seen in the L&D space have been a kind of growing up or a maturity around understanding how the limits of what a digital platform can really do. Obviously, everyone is in different areas of their own maturity journey, but just a few years ago, it was all about, can we put in a slick platform that people can find content and access it, and that will solve all our problems? But people know now that that's not going to solve their problems. And I think part of the shift from content and platform to this idea of trying to understand skills and understand how you identify and develop them is that we're starting to recognize that the world outside of L&D has changed really fundamentally. So a simple example is podcasts. Everyone is learning from podcasts now in their spare time. Not everyone, but it seems to be a dominant use case for them. Most learning platforms don't support them very well. Been quite gradual to do that. So what do? You're going to get people to come off Spotify or Apple iTunes or whatever? No, you're not going to manage that. So that's been a big shift. And then the second, the bigger kind of groundswell change is, I think Donald Clark posted something on LinkedIn about this yesterday, the use of generative AI as performance support tool. So that's really what it is fundamentally. You're a bit of a fool if you take the outputs from Gen AI and use it directly in something. But what's it doing when it's giving you an almost perfect example, coaching you, it's acting like a mentor. So real-time performance support tool that's used regularly by over 100 million people. And then if you look at the other ways it's being embedded into different applications, it's much broader than that. I mean, for decades, L&D has been thinking about how do we solve this problem of performance support. And we set up elaborate systems of stuff embedded into applications and triggers and workflows and making really short bite-sized resources. And suddenly this thing comes onto the scene and it can just do it. It doesn't mean there's not a really important role for learning technology vendors, and there's a lot of just platforms and content here still, but there's got to be the moment at which we're like, actually, we need to go beyond just a fancy platform. Our technology should be used to understand the skills people have and what they're developing and to help them on that pathway, not just sheep at them in more content.
Brilliant. And having looked backwards, now let's look ahead. Over the next year, what are you hoping to see change or evolve in the space?
I've been in this space for a while now. I've learned to be a lot more cautious in my predictions. What I would like to see happen, and something that Filtered is showing prototypes of, is what we would describe as AI agents that integrate skills and content data. So we're showing an AI agent can run on any language model, one that you set up yourself, and it's specifically briefed to talk to, in this case, we're using the Degreed API, but talk to the API of your skill system, understand what skills you have, talk to Filtered's API, which understands all your content, and bring the two things together and store the conversations. So I'm coming, Tom's logging on, and it's saying, hey, I already know you're focused on, you have these career goals, do you want to change them? You have these skills. And so you can put in a robust prompt, like, what the hell should I learn today? And it's like, hey, I can recommend you this, right? And that's very different from what generative AI can do without those integrations, where you have to give it a good prompt to get a good answer. Now, we will pilot this. People are already talking about it at the conference with a number of leading customers. I would like to see that much more broadly next year. People just using generative AI to really make the whole experience super frictionless. But let's be honest, it's not going to happen. Not yet. It's going to take a long time. And unfortunately, as always, L&D talent development, not that ahead in the queue in terms of use of these internal language models. What will change, I think, clearly between now and next year is what we are already seeing, which is a grand consolidation of the LMS and LXP space. You'll see the leading LXPs are growing more and more features. It makes them into a learning management system, and a learning management system is becoming more like LXPs. And maybe the fundamental architecture is shifting a bit to be more about skills. I think that is important because none of these technologies will work unless you have some kind of data on the skills that your people have, which is well organized. And so I think that shift will happen and people will just be in a more mature space. And then maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, we'll finally be catching up to everyone else and implementing AI across the board to do these workflows and tasks.
Fantastic. Well, thank you ever so much for your time, Toby. Really appreciate it.